At the end of the autumn break, Carlos Sainz will race his last 6 races with Scuderia Ferrari. The Spanish driver, starting from Abu Dhabi, will begin thinking about his new adventure with Williams. For the 30-year-old Spaniard, it is clearly a significant downgrade. Unfortunately, the Grove team, a historic name in the Formula One lineup, hasn't been in vogue for many years. The British team is trying to climb back up the standings, but the road still seems to be very long and winding, and it is difficult to believe that the current Ferrari driver can wait for their progress. For Carlos Sainz, the next 6 races will be his last in a top team, at least in the short to medium term. The fact that he was overlooked by Red Bull and Mercedes puts the Spanish driver in a position that is certainly not privileged for the rest of his career. There were contacts with both teams, but one wonders why the negotiations didn't succeed. Did the Spaniard ask for too much in terms of money? Did he drag it out too long? We will likely never have an answer to these questions, just as we will probably never know why the deal with Audi didn't happen. The German team hasn't exactly gotten off to the best start, and the reshuffling of recent months raises doubts about the competitiveness of the Four Rings brand starting in 2026 with the arrival of the new Formula One technical regulations. In short, Carlos Sainz's future in Formula One doesn't seem particularly bright. The Spanish driver surprised everyone by accepting the offer from James Vowles and Williams for the reasons mentioned in the previous paragraph. Against the continuation of his career is also a statistic that isn't exactly favorable for drivers who have left Ferrari to continue with other teams. Let's examine some data regarding the performance of drivers who left the Italian side. Starting in 1996, when the Michael Schumacher era began at Maranello, only 2 drivers have managed to win a Formula One Grand Prix after leaving the Scuderia Ferrari F1 team, namely Rubens Barrichello and Kimi Räikkönen, both with 2 victories to their name. For the Brazilian driver, it all happened in the magical 2009 season with Brawn GP, winning in Valencia and at the Monza circuit during the period when Jenson Button, his teammate and world champion at the end of the year, was trying to manage the advantage he had built up in the early races of the 2009 Formula One season. Rubens Barrichello had to settle for less, but at least he broke a significant taboo. As for Kimi Räikkönen, who became champion with Ferrari in 2007, we are talking about his 2 wins with Lotus in Abu Dhabi 2012 and Australia 2013. The fact that the Finnish driver then returned to Maranello doesn't change anything, because he still managed to pull off the feat of winning with a team other than Ferrari after leaving. All the others, starting with the champion Michael Schumacher, followed by other great drivers such as Fernando Alonso, Felipe Massa, and Sebastian Vettel, not forgetting, of course, Eddie Irvine, never tasted the thrill of the top step of the podium again after the gates of Maranello closed behind them. The feeling is that Carlos Sainz agreed with Williams while waiting for something more substantial. Perhaps Mercedes, Red Bull, or why not, even McLaren, which at the moment couldn't guarantee him a seat. Carlos Sainz is preparing as best he can for his last 6 races with Ferrari, both physically and, above all, mentally, as he is aware that these are very likely his last chances to win a race in Formula One for the rest of his career. Carlos Sainz, therefore, is now close to saying goodbye to Scuderia Ferrari to make room for Lewis Hamilton starting with the 2025 Formula One Championship. Despite the fact that a lot of time has passed since the announcement of the English driver's arrival at Maranello, the current season is not yet over, and the Spaniard has never stopped renewing his gratitude for Ferrari. It certainly wasn't easy for the number 55 to accept the divorce from the Maranello team, but during the 2024 Formula One season, he had several opportunities to demonstrate his value. In the end, Carlos Sainz chose to embrace Williams' project, and from there he will restart to give a new direction to his career. Although Williams may not immediately give him the chance to fight for the podium, the Spaniard still chose the English team in an attempt to bring it back to the top. In the meantime, however, he emphasizes that his story with Ferrari remains important to him. In a recent interview for the Spanish media, Carlos Sainz expressed that he holds no negative feelings toward Ferrari and believes the Maranello team feels the same about him and his contributions over the years. He explained that his departure wasn't due to issues between him and the Italian side, but rather because of external circumstances. Carlos Sainz acknowledged that if Lewis Hamilton had not chosen to finish his career with Ferrari, he likely would have renewed his contract with the team. However, he understood that it's difficult to refuse a 7-time Formula One world champion like Lewis Hamilton, calling it a matter of destiny. The Spaniard also stated that he won't feel envious of Lewis Hamilton's work next season, even if part of it will be based on his own efforts, and that his focus will remain on the present. Carlos Sainz secured one race victory during the current Formula One championship, at the Albert Park circuit in the Australian Grand Prix, but unfortunately the SF24 single-seater has shown inconsistent performance throughout the season. After a strong start, there was a significant downturn following the aerodynamic update introduced package in Spain, though there were some signs of recovery starting with the Italian Grand Prix, which was won by Charles Leclerc in Monza. Of course, as the floor is the part that has most destabilized the car's behavior, we'll need to wait for the next races to see if the issues have truly been resolved. On this matter, Carlos Sainz pointed out that at tracks like Austin, Brazil, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi, Ferrari will need to show that they have made progress. If they do, they might have a chance to fight for victory under certain conditions. But looking at how things went for the Italian side at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps and the Hungaroring circuit, it is clear that the SF24 is still behind in terms of race pace. If Ferrari repeat those performances, it will mean they still have a lot of work to do in this final part of the 2024 Formula One season. At the same time, Carlos Sainz has acknowledged that he would be open to following team orders to support his Maranello teammate Charles Leclerc, though he doubts it will come to that. Carlos Sainz has faced a difficult stretch since the season resumed, scoring only 28 points in the last 4 races, while Charles Leclerc has managed 58 during the same period. These struggles have left the Spaniard trailing 55 points behind Charles Leclerc in the Drivers' Championship with just 6 races, including 3 sprints, remaining. The Monegasque driver, meanwhile, sits in third, sandwiched between McLaren's Lando Norris and the 2-time champion Max Verstappen. Despite being 86 points behind Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc still has an outside chance in the 2024 Formula One title fight. While Carlos Sainz expressed his willingness to play a supportive role, he pointed out that Charles Leclerc's significant gap to Max Verstappen makes it unlikely that Ferrari will issue any orders for him to step aside. When asked whether team orders had been discussed within Ferrari, the future Williams driver was realistic about the situation, hinting that such a scenario may not unfold given the current standings. Since the summer break, Charles Leclerc has secured 3 podium finishes, including a victory in the Italian Grand Prix at the Monza circuit in the Maranello team's home race. Despite this, the Monegasque driver is also aware that Ferrari's SF24 lacks the outright speed needed to challenge for the 2024 F1 championship title. Ferrari has managed to narrow the gap to Red Bull to just 34 points, but a poor showing in the Singapore Grand Prix at the Marina Bay Street circuit due to the performance in the qualifying session has widened the distance to McLaren, now sitting at 75 points behind the Woking outfit ahead of the United States Grand Prix. The 2 Ferrari drivers recognize that overtaking McLaren in the standings will be a difficult task, but they have emphasized the importance of Ferrari being ready to seize any opportunities that arise from their rivals' potential errors in this final part of the Formula One campaign.